For a long time, I've been wanting to do something with Sword Lords of the Eastern Regions. These are rules for miniatures, copyright 1981 by M.J. Becker and Associates, produced and distributed by Archive Miniatures and Game Systems. I've had them for quite some time, and here are the full credits. Here are the artwork credit and other game design credits. And I just haven't really figured out what to do with them because I don't have a lot of minis. They have rules for overland, they have rules for naval adventures, deep sea encounters, ships, and dungeons. There's quite a lot of material in here, but I've decided to pull from this some material basically randomly generated to give you another adventure starter. I'm not going to be using the rules here from Sword Lords, but I am going to be using some of the very rich material that is provided to give you the beginnings of a story, or at least the outlines of a story that you could take in some direction that makes sense to you. If you're interested just in the story part, skip ahead to the timestamp that I've put down. I'm not sure what timestamp will say as of recording right now, but it will be clear by the time the video is processed. If you want to know a little bit about my thoughts about putting this together, then continue watching along here. What I'll do in the course of the video is to do a little bit of pausing so that if you are watching along, as I did in the other video, you can have a moment to think about what you might do next with your character. Otherwise, you can just, as I said, watch it, and either for inspiration, maybe the story here will become the backstory of one of your characters, or I don't know, whatever you do with it or don't do with it, obviously, is not something I can actually know. These are just some thoughts and suggestions. But before we get to that, I do want to spend a few minutes at least just looking here at the amazing resource this is. I've had this for quite some time, and just trying to figure out whether I could actually play it out. As you know, I don't have a lot of minis, so this is from Archive Miniatures and Game Systems, and I already showed the credits here. It just contains an incredible amount of overland and seaworthy adventure charts and random tables and rules, of course, ship combat we have, and tons of charts with random scenarios and even reaction charts for various NPCs that you would encounter, backgrounds, overland adventures, coastal, deep sea, sailing. So you can see why I decided somehow to incorporate these, because there was an interesting connection there. We have dungeon adventuring, of course, treasure types, treasure hoards, just tons of stuff. So my thought in right now, and I have not plan this out because I find that when I do things like this, it's better to just do it on the fly. I'm going to, and of course I'm mining this material here, this Sword Lords of the Eastern Regions, just for its random tables and that aspect of the creativity, and not the world that it creates. And there is a backstory here. You can see some of the kind of cool art in this book. I may randomize. This is sort of a thought. Now I don't have out at least any kind of seascape that has a hex grid on it. I do have the wilderness here. I could do some, if I really wanted to make it random, I could do a D4, D6 roll to determine where we were moving, and then I don't know, that could possibly work, but I'm probably not going to do that. I'm not even sure that this was just, the outdoor survival pages were just sort of stored in here. It wasn't really a plan to use them. I'm also not going to necessarily go through this all page by page here, but I do want to show you a little bit of the offerings in here in case you want to try to track it down, because it's pretty rich in what it has. So these are some of the rules, but it gives you racial advantages for different races, and I think there's 12 of these: trolls, skeletons, orcs, lizard men, giants, other creatures and races, and These look to me, I don't know whether in here they could be playable, but they are elementals. Elephants are actually alphabetical here. Centaurs, griffins, minotaurs. How I'm going to use this, not really sure. Combat and magic. Obviously, we're skipping over these particular rules here. We have basic wizard spells. We have advanced magic, dragon lords, and callers. So we have rules for large battles and the battlefield and setting that up. We have a whole thing on ship combat here. And then it moves into, obviously, there's treasure. We have random weather charts for different regions that you're sailing in. We have scenarios. We have reaction charts if it's the same race. So, for example, if you're playing an Amazon and you encounter an Amazon, you would roll on this chart. If you were playing an Amazon and you encountered an orc, you would roll on this chart. So that's pretty cool. And the background characters, technology levels, overland encounters, deep sea encounters, coastal encounters, ship encounters. I mean, just a ton of resources here. Chart of magic items. We have random monsters in rooms chart, treasure chart for treasure hoards, chart of potions. So what I'm going to do is somewhat similar to what I did last time in the video on the adventure starter. What I'm going to do, my goal, as I said, is just to develop a story for you. So it's sort of, this part is twofold in a way, to show you and follow some of the strategies and approaches that I take when developing an adventure, but also to let you play along if you want, or to listen along if you want, and to take what is here and port it into whatever system you like to run with, and have that be either the adventure starter for your own story, or the backstory of a character, or in some way inform what you might be doing. Perhaps this could be a little side scenario that is dropped into if you have an ongoing campaign or you have an ongoing game that you're playing. Obviously, it's in the fantasy genre, but beyond that, there's not going to be any specific rules here. I may mention things that aren't covered in your rule set, like a giant, for example, but you could have that show up as some fantastical, dreamlike thing. Who knows? I'm going to have 3 characters setting out, and of course, you don't have to have the same 3 characters, but for the purposes of this story, again, you could pick and choose among the elements that I'm providing here as whatever works for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to roll on this chart, and you'll see, as I said, I have not been through this before. As you know, sometimes I go through charts and I pre-number them so I can just automatically roll whatever it is I'm going to roll up. I haven't done that here, so I'm going to have to be sort of figuring out and saving you the pain of this through editing what I can actually do as a roll. But some of the things, a lot of the stuff I'm going to do randomly because, as I said, I find for me that generates the most creative storytelling, and I think it will also demonstrate how you can form connections among random things to generate story, and to have the randomness work for you as narrative links. So the first thing we're going to do is see for character number 1 who this character is. We're going to go with the different races that they have here. So there's 1, 2, 3. There are 10 different races in this game, and I've always wanted to use, I like the idea of using dice that are also contemporaneous to this game. This is my favorite D10 here, as you can probably see why. It is also from the 80s, but I'm not going to use it because for obvious reasons. So we'll go with a different D10 to roll up. Whoops. That's my pocket full of dice falling to the floor. We're going to go with a different D10 to roll up the race of the first character, which is going to be a 2. So we have an elf, and I guess I need to make a note of this. You perhaps or perhaps not will as well. And it might be useful for me to summarize some of the characteristics, at least from this rule set, that the elves are given thematically. You could translate this perhaps into some personality for your elf. So here the elf has, and again, I don't know the rules, but this is the variation on the rules, so you can infer what the rules are. He's going to get a regular save bonus, so it's going to be easier for him to achieve certain things. However, no initiative minus if his leader is killed, so he's sort of independent. He adds a +1 to his morale rolls and is not hindered by moving through the woods. He has a base movement of 12. I don't know how that compares, but we'll say it's bigger, and is healed with no minus on his save. So that's character number 1 is going to be an elf. Character number 2 is going to be a halfling. So far, pretty standard stuff. Let's see, he's got a +2 on reaction, so he's pretty aware. Treat them as scouts. And they also seem to get a save bonus. And character number 3, so we've got an elf, a halfling, and a skeleton. An elf, a halfling, and a skeleton. Immune to arrow attacks, of course. They are not immune to magic, partially magic, and have special abilities. They are often summoned by an evil sorcerer. They sink immediately in water. That makes sense. Have a -2 reaction to living creatures, and treat zombies, mummies, and the like as skeletons. I guess that would be for the encounter portion if it comes as an encounter of the same race, and they can shatter if they are hit. So we have an elf, a halfling, and a skeleton. Now, in my conception here, these are part of the same party. They are together in some manner, and let me find out what the manner is. So for that, I'm going to go to my kind of standard for that, which is to give them something. They're going to have something. Let's give someone a potion, a scroll, and a gem. So who's carrying the potion? Well, these are, oh, okay, these are great, already numbered. So this is the 3d6 table. Get out my pocket full of dice. And so the elf's going to have a potion. And what is the elf going to have as his potion? He's going to have potion number 10. He's going to have a healing potion. So the elf has a healing potion. Now, for something like this, we could simply say that the elf has a healing potion, or we could say that the elf is a healer. You know, you could roll something up like this and have it be a symbol of something. It doesn't have to actually be the thing. Again, this is your adventure, your story. This is just sort of my providing you with some raw material. So the halfling is going to have scroll number 8. It teaches the ability to dodge arrows to 1 unit, so all missile fire is at 1 shift down. So my sense here from this, if this were me playing this, well, let me roll up the skeleton before I tell you what this thing with the halfling is suggesting to me. And the skeleton is going to have the gem, and the gem is going to be 14. It's a large gem. So it's a large gem. What this is telling me right here, and again, this can tell you whatever you want it to tell you. What it is telling me right now is that the skeleton has the best thing, and the halfling has something that is a benefit that the skeleton has, which is to say, we read that the skeleton was not impacted by any type of missiles. We read that in the description of the skeleton, and this halfling has something which in effect gives him that skeletal benefit. And the elf itself has a healing potion. This is telling me that the skeleton is somehow the leader here of this pack, and that the halfling with this scroll and the elf with a healing potion, which is a protecting, obviously protecting the elf, is somehow under the thrall. We learned that the skeleton had some magic, and somehow under the thrall, perhaps, of the skeleton, this magical skeleton, that they are subservient to him in some way. Again, this is what I would be, where I would be going with this if I were playing this out for you in that way, but right now I'm really just providing you with the raw material to play it out as you wish. Because of all of this, and because it said the skeleton had some magic, I'm going to go to the spells, and I'm going to give the skeleton one spell. So let's see. For the magical spells, I'm also going to roll 3d6, eliminating one of them that I see is too specific to this rule set, so we get a chart that will work, and we rolled the 7, 1, 2, Mind Shield. This sort of shield spell prevents any wizard magic on the caster or one other unit in range for one turn. So we have some protection against magic, and the skeleton has a mind shield. So perhaps, again, perhaps you might think that this little party is wherever they're going is going to be a place not only of magic, but a place of magic that might be dangerous to it in some way. That is, we've got some random tables for the situation in the country, the gossip in the country. So let's roll that up first to get some sense not of the physical environment, but of the, say, emotional environment here. So the situation wherever we're going to be, the situation in this country is 8, 9, 10, 11. There's going to be some bandits on the roads inland. So there's going to be some bandits around. All right, there's a chart here for gossip in the country. So let's see what's the kind of the word on the street, as it were, about what's going on here. Gargoyles have been seen flying overhead. So there's I don't know what that suggests. Gargoyles flying overhead. Well, the fact of gargoyles says to me that there's some building structures around, because gargoyles are going to be on building structures, and they're flying overhead. So some errant magic. We can have an immediate encounter. I'm not sure I'm going to roll on that. That might be too specific for me. So let me think about this. Gargoyles flying overhead combined with some bandits on the roads inland. So again, for me, and you can take from this whatever makes sense to you, the gargoyles and the roads are telling me that we're in a place that is built up. So we're not actually out in the wilderness somewhere, because there's not going to be a random gargoyle. Well, I guess it could be flying really far out from a village, but that we're going to be in some place, a village, a town, some inhabited land. That's where we are. So let me investigate these rules further to see if I can get some direction there. So I was looking through Sword Lords to try to develop this concept of the gargoyle, which is something that speaks to me a lot, and I didn't really find anything there. And then I was going to go off topic or off resource really, and look at some of my architecture books and try to find something, or my book of symbols, things that you've seen in other videos. And surprisingly, I didn't actually find anything about gargoyles. But if it were me at this point, that's the thing that I would be kind of glomming onto and trying to develop it. But as I started to think about that, I made some notes for you, and these are the notes that that I would be taking if I was stepping back from this. And the first thing here is the suggestion of the gargoyle and the fact that they're bandits on a road, that there's a structure, does say, as I was suggesting in a later segment, that there's inhabitants here, there's maybe perhaps a village. The elf having this woods benefit, perhaps they are in the woods, again, suggestive of where they might be. Maybe they're going to a magic academy in the woods. We noticed in the skeleton that it was mentioned that they are often being summoned by some kind of evil sorcerer. So maybe this gargoyle is flying off the evil sorcerer's magic fortress to either bring a word of warning or to be an early attack or a scout. We were also told that our halfling in our party is to be considered a scout, and this halfling is carrying this scroll, maybe this scroll that is providing the exact benefit that we were told skeletons have, means that perhaps the skeleton was a halfling in a prior life. That could be something to possibly investigate. I still don't have any clear direction of what's linking an elf, a halfling, and a skeleton together. But that, maybe there isn't anything. Maybe there isn't anything. Or maybe the halfling, again, and the skeleton are clearly linked in some way, and the elf is just kind of there. I don't know. The skeleton with a large gem, well, what is it? Was it stolen? Is it being summoned back by the evil sorcerer? Is it in itself good or evil? Perhaps your story has to do with the skeleton bringing back this gem as an offering to the evil sorcerer, who maybe he's trying to get released from whatever it is that is his obligation to the sorcerer. The gargoyle, again, in motion, that is suggesting to me connection. So when I roll up something like this in the context of something random, and whatever I am rolling up is indicative of movement, I try to think about how that could be connecting different aspects of the story. And that's where I'm landing on the gargoyle coming off of this sorcerer's academy, magic academy, or lair, or place of residence. So the story could go in any number of directions at this point. Action-wise, it could be your party just wandering through the woods, coming to this place, encountering the academy or the place of evil. And if it were to be a dungeon crawl, they could be just going into it could be an interior. The action could be focused on the interior, and you could develop it that way. If you wanted to have some kind of overland experience in getting there, they could be in the woods, sort of walking there, maybe walking along the roads. We were told that there are these bandits along the road. Those could be some encounters. Again, what strikes me, the things that stand out to me, are this large gem and this gargoyle. And those, to me, would be sort of linking the story together and could further be developed out. If you wanted to get yourself to the next stage in storytelling, you could get some random tables together and build up a history of what is this large gem. And that could be a stepping off point for further investigation, and perhaps that would connect somehow narratively, let you connect and develop a story out of how this party was formed. You could do it the same kind of thing with this gargoyle. Investigate, maybe going into a little bit more research, like what is the history of gargoyles? What have gargoyles historically been symbolized in some way, and think about that, and that might help you develop who is this sorcerer and something about perhaps the destination of this party. And then as you developed who the sorcerer was, connecting it back to maybe it's the skeleton who's being summoned back, and or maybe it could be bringing in some of the other party members. Those are the different directions that I might go in to further develop from this adventure start. And I would love to hear in the comments if any of this sparked your imagination in some way, perhaps differently than I took it. And thanks for watching.